Level 1, $0. You are invisible. Not metaphorically, administratively. Your entire existence is reduced to emergency intake forms, shelter wait lists, and a Medicaid number attached to overdue paperwork. You are 23 years old. The shelter where you've been sleeping is shutting down next week because the city approved a redevelopment initiative. That's the official phrase. Redevelopment. What it means is this. The building where you sleep is worth more as luxury apartments than as a place for poor people to survive winter. You attend the city hearing because someone at the shelter says public comments matter. They don't tell you the building closes no matter what. A clerk at the front desk asks for identification before you can speak. Your ID expired 4 months ago. Without current identification, you cannot address the council. So you sit down again. A young political aide notices you afterward. Perfect haircut, expensive shoes, smile trained by internships and donor dinners. He kneels beside your chair like he's filming a campaign ad. "I'm really sorry you're going through this," he says. Then he hands you a card. Embossed lettering, government seal, Office of Community Development. The local news runs the story that night. Your face is blurred. His isn't. The shelter closes 6 days later. For a while, you sleep behind a public library because the Wi-Fi reaches the parking lot after midnight. One night, your phone battery drops to 8%. You search. How do people build apps without money? That search changes your life. At the time, it feels smaller than hunger. Level 2, $25,000. You are no longer invisible. Now you are taxable. You teach yourself basic coding using library computers and free online tutorials, not because anyone mentored you, because learning was cheaper than staying stuck. Eventually, you land a support job at a software company, $18 an hour, no benefits, 32 hours a week so they don't have to classify you as full-time. Your first paycheck feels unreal. Your first tax bill feels personal. Nobody explains estimated taxes. Nobody explains withholding. Nobody explains why earning slightly more suddenly disqualifies you from programs you depended on 6 months earlier. The government teaches poor people finance the way oceans teach swimming, by punishment. You buy a used Honda with 190,000 miles on it because the office moved outside bus range. The car costs $2,700. Registration costs extra. Insurance costs extra. Parking tickets arrive faster than instructions. Everything legal has a maintenance fee. That's when you begin building your own software at night. A tool that helps ordinary people apply for government benefits without getting trapped in confusing forms and dead links. You know where the forms fail because they failed you first. The app grows quietly. 300 users, then 2,000, then 9,000. People begin emailing you things like, "Your website explained more in 10 minutes than my caseworker did in 3 months." A local agency sends you a warning letter. Your branding may create public confusion regarding official services. You panic. You rewrite the homepage overnight using giant text. This is not a government website. Nobody contacts you again. You learn something important that year. The system often stops pushing once you prove you can survive the push. Level 3, $100,000. You are now a business owner, which means you've entered a completely different version of America. You incorporate your company. Suddenly, there are filing fees, state fees, federal forms, licenses, quarterly payments, compliance notices, deadlines you didn't know existed until after missing them. The government does not simplify complexity as you grow, it multiplies it. You hire an accountant. Cost? $4,000. Savings discovered? $17,000. Mileage deductions, equipment depreciation, health insurance write-offs, tax strategies nobody mentioned when you were broke. The realization hits hard. The tax code is technically public, but understanding it is a luxury product. You apply for a small business loan. 41 days of paperwork, income projections, business narratives, risk assessments. You are rejected the first time because your market positioning lacks clarity. A consultant rewrites your application for $2,000. Approved. Same bank, same program, different language. Your company grows anyway. You hire your first employee, then your second. Then the audit letter arrives. Random selection. That's what the notice says. Your accountant laughs when you call it random. The audit lasts months. You lose thousands proving you did nothing wrong. When it ends, the government sends a polite conclusion letter. No apology, no reimbursement, no acknowledgement that compliance itself can bankrupt small companies. You finally understand something wealthy people learn early. In America, complexity is expensive. And expensive things create industries around surviving them.
Level 4, $500,000. You are no longer treated like a worker. You are treated like an entity. Lawyers begin speaking to you differently. Bankers return calls faster. People who ignored you suddenly describe you as promising. You restructure your company. New legal protections, new tax classifications, new strategies. Every adjustment saves money. Every adjustment costs money to discover. Your financial advisor introduces you to provisions hidden deep inside federal tax law, programs capable of saving millions, perfectly legal, almost completely unknown outside elite financial circles. The government does not hide advantages behind locked doors. It hides them behind specialized vocabulary. You pursue your first government contract. The proposal package is over 80 pages. Security reviews, certifications, compliance screenings, prior government references required. You can't get approved without experience. You can't get experience without approval. So you partner with a giant consulting firm that takes a massive percentage simply for already existing inside the system. That's when you realize something unsettling. Many industries aren't built on innovation. They're built on navigation.
Level 5, $1 million. You are officially wealthy on paper. Emotionally, you mostly feel responsible for payroll. Your company expands across multiple states. Regulations multiply with every hire. You now employ people whose entire jobs exist solely because the government paperwork became too large for everyone else. You attend your first political fundraiser. $3,000 per plate. Nobody openly asks for favors. Nobody needs to. The transaction is subtler than corruption. You are purchasing proximity, and proximity changes outcomes. 3 weeks after attending, a congressional office suddenly responds to an issue your company had been ignored on for months. Nobody says the dinner mattered. Nobody has to. You hire a lobbying firm. Not because you want influence, because you discover your competitors already have it. At lower income levels, government feels distant. At this level, government feels conversational. Rules are no longer weather. They are meetings. Then, one afternoon, you see a familiar face on television. The young aide from the shelter hearing years ago. Now a congressman. Now serving on a committee overseeing parts of your industry. You stare at the screen longer than necessary. He does not remember you. You never forgot him. Level 6, $10 million. You are now invited into rooms that technically do not exist. Policy dinners, advisory councils, private retreats, roundtables with senators, agency staff, and executives whose companies affect millions of lives. No cameras, no transcripts. Officially, these conversations are informal. Unofficially, they shape everything. Draft regulations begin circulating before public release. You recognize wording from presentations your team prepared months earlier. Not copied, absorbed. The government starts calling your company a stakeholder. That word matters. Stakeholders are consulted before decisions. Everyone else learns afterward.
You notice how influence really works in America, not through dramatic conspiracies, through access, through familiarity, through repeated exposure to the same people in the same rooms until their priorities start sounding reasonable. One policy change saves your company nearly $5 million. Smaller businesses absorb the full burden. You tell yourself this isn't unfair. You tell yourself you're protecting jobs. You tell yourself survival requires participation. All of that is true, which is what makes it dangerous.
Level 7, $100 million. You are no longer wealthy. You are important. Your company goes public. Cable networks invite you on air. Universities offer honorary positions. Federal agencies request your input. Years earlier, you couldn't speak at a city hearing because your ID expired. Now, lawmakers ask for your perspective before introducing legislation. Same country, different valuation. You testify before Congress. The congressman from the shelter hearing sits 2 seats away. Older now, more polished, more careful. During testimony, you casually mention sleeping in a library parking lot years earlier while teaching yourself to code. The room goes quiet. Not because homelessness shocks them, because success does. Poverty is common. Escaping it at scale makes people uncomfortable. Afterward, reporters call your story inspiring. You hate that word. Inspiring is what people call suffering after it becomes profitable. Level 8, $1 billion. You are no longer part of the economy. You are infrastructure. Your company processes systems the government itself depends on. Federal agencies negotiate with you carefully because disruption would affect millions of people. When your office calls Washington, people answer quickly. Not because they fear you, because your company employs thousands across multiple states. Employment becomes political gravity. You testify during a major antitrust investigation. A senator asks whether companies like yours hold too much influence over public policy. You almost laugh, because the truthful answer is uncomfortable. Power in America is rarely seized. It accumulates, quietly, automatically. The more people depend on you, the harder it becomes for institutions to challenge you without hurting themselves. That night, after the hearing, you return to your office long after everyone leaves. Inside your desk is an old business card, bent corners, faded gold lettering. The aide from the shelter hearing, the man who once gave you 11 seconds of attention outside a building scheduled for demolition. You place the card on your desk and stare at it for a long time. Because after decades of money, influence, regulation, politics, and power, you finally understand something terrifying. The system never transformed. Only your position inside it did.